Morning, everyone. Welcome to Legislative Administration. Rep Tierney, can you lead us in the pledge?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. First off, want to thank our substitutes today. We've got new entrants. Representative Malloy is substituting for Payeur, Representative Payeur, and for the first time ever, Representative Karen Evil is here substituting for our ranking member Janet Wall. Thank you, both of you. I appreciate it. Good morning. Another school bus? Did you get behind another school bus? Chairman know everything. Excellent. Well, we have one bill on our agenda for today, Senate Bill 84. Don't be confused by the fact that we only have one bill, so it'll be a uncomplicated affair, but it's a amendment on top of amendments on top of amendments. So we've got to maintain some intellectual attention going here for a little while. First off, we have to, I think right now I would recognize Representative Sheehan for a motion of ought to pass.
Correct.
What's that? We are actually in hearings. So what we have to do, I told you it was getting complicated. What we're actually doing is execing SB 84, but adding amendments, and the amendments are getting a public hearing as we go.
Okay.
Right?
That's confusing.
It is.
Yeah.
It's weird because then we have a separate section.
You'll need your microphone when you need to speak, but yeah, it is a confusing thing. We are holding public hearings on amendments to Senate Bill 84, but we're doing it in terms of an exec session on 84 because this is this is our last bill and we need to perform our duties to execute and remove or issue a final report. So with that, first little glitch, I would ask Rep Sheehan for a motion on Senate Bill 84.
I move ought to pass.
Rep Sheehan. Oh, I'm being waived.
You guys aren't in the exec session. You
Well-
have to have the hearings first. We didn't notice the exec agenda.
But if we're going to add amendments as we, excuse me for a minute. Got it. You all knew this, but apparently I did not. So, as it was put into the calendar, the exec session will be handled after the public hearings on each one of the amendments. So the amendments will be heard individually. So at 10 o'clock, we have scheduled, maybe I would do better with glasses. We've scheduled a public hearing on amendment 2023-2401H. And for that, I don't see the prime sponsor. But I can fill in, I guess. Or would you like to talk to it? Why don't you take this, the witness table? Prime sponsor, Shirtliff was supposed to attend and talk about the commission that he is the chair of. But for that, I'll ask Rep. Sheehan to introduce the amendment. Thank you.
Yeah, so I would like to introduce Amendment 2023-2401. The prime sponsor again is Representative Shirtliff, and what it's doing is removing the John G. Winnett Memorial Commission. We're removing it, repealing it from the list of commissions, and that statute will now be taken care of, maintained by the Joint Legislative Historical Committee.
Thank you. Would you entertain a question or two, if there are any?
Absolutely.
Rep. Ebel.
Thank you. I'm on the Commission on Commissions with the chair, Representative Dolan there, and I know you're on it too. Is it not true that we had a discussion about what to do with this particular commission, since the commission really was created to establish the monument? And so its time had kind of passed, so either it had to be amended, or the other alternative that was suggested is that it be transferred to the Historical Commission. And then I have a follow-up. Is that not true?
That is true.
Establishing the record here. Okay, and then is it also not true that there was a general consensus on the Commission on Commissions to support this kind of action, to transfer it if Representative Shirtliff felt that that was appropriate?
That's true.
Okay, thank you.
And I would follow up that Rep. Shirtliff's acquiescence with that, this movement, is indicated by the fact that he prime sponsored the amendment that came.
That is true.
Thank you. Further questions? Seeing none, thank you. If you can grab a pink card. As far as I can tell, we're good to go. I had allotted 15 minutes, having heard Rep. Shirtliff speak in the past. We've got, especially on this topic, that he is very near and dear to his heart. We have 5 minutes before our next scheduled public hearing, and that would be on Amendment 2023-2372H. So sit tight. Okay, here we are at 10:15. We can move on to Amendment 2023-2372H. And I'd recognize our very fine Deputy Chief of Staff, Deborah Childs. This is while she's preparing and pushing, oh, it's already pushed for the microphone. We just had a couple of quick questions about this annual index on commissions and why it would be appropriate for that to be removed from RSA 1449 at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, honorable committee members. Happy to be here. Again, Deborah Childs, Deputy Chief of Staff for the House. Because when this was written, we didn't have the functionality to pull the information from the system, but the staff over the past year has been making improvements on the statutory commission process. And a couple of months ago, we worked with IT and created an export function. So if you're familiar with the website where you can see the statutory commissions, there's now a button there that says export, and you can export all of the data. So I think this is unnecessary and duplicative. It's also concerning because it says pull the relevant information annually for the Speaker, Senate President, and other offices. But it would actually be that office which would know what the relevant data is for each of those offices. So for example, I work for the Speaker. He needs certain information, so I would present that information to him. So that could also be confusing. But again, I believe it's unnecessary and duplicative to have them do something that we can do at any point in time.
Thank you. You have a minute for a question or two?
Yes.
First off, I'm going to start. It would seem to me that, and what we're dealing with, just so the committee is aware, we have handed out to us, it says at the top, Title I, the state and its government, and it's RSA, a copy of RSA 1449. What this amendment is concerned with is E at the bottom. The question I had, or the point that I wanted to make sure was on the record, was the fact that this was going to be done once a year on January 15th. But now through this availability, it could be drawn at any point in time
Any point in time.
by anyone.
Exactly. Mr. Chairman, you could push the export functionality
No.
and have the report
No.
if you wanted to. But
If I
work it
wanted to is the key
if you
part.
wanted to.
Yeah.
But as I work for the Speaker, I will pull it for the Speaker when the Speaker wants it with the information he needs, and as would the person who works for the Senate President.
Great. Are there any other questions? Representative Ebel.
So one of the, and I think you sort of answered the issue, but one of the big problems that we found when we were originally working with the Commission on Commissions is that this data, it took like many, many weeks to pool all the data to assess whether the commissions were really, whether they should be repealed, whether they should meet, and all that sort of thing. And so one of the reasons that we put this in the statute is just to make sure that somebody was watching the hen house to make sure that all this data was constantly being updated. So one of the things on the chart that was really useful, that was sort of going to be reflected in the statute, was how frequently the committees were meeting and whether they were still worthwhile. So what you're saying is that you've updated all the IT, so all the data that would have been in this report is now going to be in the system? Like if they're meeting, is it, and then a lot of times, a report is basically reflecting what's inputted. So all the inputs are going to be there. And I just want to make sure that we're tracking this year after year. I know you have similar concerns.
Thank you for the question, Representative. Unfortunately, the data in the system requires a lot of cleanup. So that's our next project to tackle. This export functionality has helped us significantly with that. As Representative Ebel mentioned, we have separate spreadsheets. So
me working for the speaker, I had my own spreadsheet of statutory commissions. House Committee Services had one, the Senate had one, and I'm sure many other people who work for appointing authorities have their own spreadsheet. So our goal is to consolidate that, get all on the same page, and just use the export functionality from the tool. So having said that, we don't have all of the information that was in the spreadsheets in the tool currently. So we're tackling that now. So two big efforts. One, we're cleaning up the data. And then two, we're making sure we have all of the fields that we need. And I promise you, as long as I'm here, I'm not going to give up on this project because it's a lot of manual work that we could fix with an IT solution. So we are, all of us, we staff have been working on this for a year and a half now, meeting regularly and trying to prioritize some of the improvements to help automate processes. So I cannot tell you today that we have all of the data accurate and all of the fields in the spreadsheet that we need, but we are working on it and we do have a plan to get that done. So one of my concerns, if we left this on here and if House Committee Services had to pull that information together for January 15th, it would be a significant effort because one of our challenges is getting that information from the 300 or so commissions that we have, as you know, but that's something that we're working on. How can we best maintain this information? First of all, clean up the data and get it accurate and complete, and then maintain it going forward. So I can tell you that we're working on that plan, and we're all very passionate about it. I think legislators and staff equally, because it is so time consuming. But for that to be a reason to keep the legislation really concerns me because it would take a lot of time and a lot of work, and pulling House Committee Services and Senate Committee Services away from other work that they need to do.
I'll just do a quick follow. Okay, well, that sounds great. I mean, I think the other concern that we had when we originally put this into statute is just, consistency from speaker's office to speaker's office, and we just really wanted to make sure that there was a plan in place, that these things were constantly updated. So if at any points, like legislative administration, or say if they wanted to look at a set of commissions, they'd have the information there to decide. So we just didn't get into the hole that we were in before. So it sounds like there's a good plan, and IT will come to the rescue.
I hope so. And if I may, the way to get it more consistent is to get everything in the tool. So instead of Deborah Childs updating her spreadsheet, I'm updating the system. And so whenever anybody chooses to run an export, we're looking at the live data. We're looking at the same thing. I mean, things as simple as if I put in the name Representative Ken Weiler and somebody else puts in Representative Kenneth Weiler, it's all going to be consistent going forward, whether it's a name, an email, an address, requirements, statutory requirements, it's going to be consistent.
I don't know why we had to blame Representative Weiler, but that's, any further questions? Seeing none. Thank you very much for your help.
Thank you so much.
We have no other pink cards. You can do that afterwards if you'd like. Sure. If you'd like to speak on Amendment 2372, Chair would recognize Representative Almy.
Susan Almy on Ways and Means Committee on condominiums, which I'll be talking to you later. But I started that one, and I started the Dedicated Funds Committee, which does an incredible amount of work every year now. And both of them suffered from a number of years that the staffing was reduced up here in the fourth floor, and that they couldn't keep up with all of the filing. We have years that went missing from the condo association, the condo committee, and I know the clerk brought them up, but we haven't been able to find them, and it's been 4 years we've been looking. So And the other thing is that if someone from that committee does not look at the file, the back file, and talk to them about what belongs there and what doesn't. I pulled the condo committee one, and there was some stuff for municipal and county, and there was some stuff for something else that was totally irrelevant, that had been just shoveled in there when they made the changes over. So they still have a fair amount of cleanup to do on these.
Thank you. Do you have time for a question or
Sure.
two? My question was, your pink card, and I know it was rushed, doesn't say you support or oppose. Is this idea of having this automated and be able to pull up at any time beneficial to you or not?
Yes, I think the automated is terrific. I was able to find finally, with some help from the fourth floor, on the copy of a report that on the Ways and Means side that we hadn't seen for quite a few years.
Great. Thank you very much. Are there any other questions for Representative Almy? Seeing none, thank you very much. I have now no other pink cards. With that, I think we've passed our time for this amendment. If there's nothing else to bring up, I'll move on to Amendment 2023 2400H. This is dealing with a study committee of the Department of Environmental Services appeals process. And the chair will recognize Vice Chair Sheehan for introduction.
Yeah, so this amendment is just a simple fix, and it's just changing the date, putting the date out another year from November 1st, 2023 to November 1st, 2024, as this committee hasn't met to even file a report, and the original report was due November 1st, 2023, so they just need another year.
Thank you. My understanding was the members of the committee were notified of the appointment just at the end of October. So they had virtually days to organize and meet. So they, at their request, they had asked if they could push this off for 1 year. So the only thing that's changing is, to my understanding on that amendment, is the effective, or the reporting date to November of 2024.
That's correct.
Thank you. Any further questions?
It's not really a question, but I was just going to say that
Microphone.
I was an appointee to this particular study committee, and it was something that was in HB2, and I think it was just sort of lost in the shuffle, and it's true that we weren't appointed until the week before the report was due, and it's a worthwhile study committee, and I would support this amendment, so thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other comments, thank you very much for introducing Amendment 2400H. And now we have 1 minute before we move into Senate Bill 84, Amendment 2023-2399H. So we'll reset for just a minute. Okay, time being 10:30, the chair would recognize Vice Chair Sheehan and her amendment to Senate Bill 84, which is number 20232399H.
Good morning again. Okay, so this amendment is the product of the work that's been done in the special committee on commissions that the speaker appointed us to and created. Really, it's to weed out committees and commissions that have outlived their work and purposes, and alleviating some of the work the speaker has to do in appointing members to over 300 committees and commissions. So legislative services at the beginning, when our committee started meeting, handed us 10 committees or commissions that they feel that need to be looked at in order to determine if they should be repealed or not. So these 10 committees were divvied out amongst our members, and we contacted the chairman of these commissions and committees asking their opinion if they should be repealed. So out of the 10, we found that 6 were ready to be repealed, and this is what this amendment does. It repeals those 6.
Thank you. Questions? Seeing none, thank you very much for your help. I would like to point out, if you look at the actual amendment of 2399H, the committees that actually are being repealed begin on line 24 and run through 32. We have only one pink card, and that relates to Roman V, beginning on line 31. And that's from Representative Almy. The chair would call Representative Almy. Welcome back to Legislative Administration.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Susan Almy, City of Lebanon, Ward 17, I think you made me, and on from Ways and Means, but also the person who started the condominium committee back around 2012, I think it was, and has been on it almost always since. No, it was in 10 that we sat down. We've always been half Democrats and half Republicans. There are only 4 of us. And in 2010, we sat down. We made a list of 12 things we thought we needed to do when 11 started, but then 11 was a little chaotic. And everybody got taken off the committee and some other people got put on. And we restarted in 13. And we have been working ever since, but we are facing some major problems with the work. We did add a great deal about governance of condos to the condominium law, which had been set up in 1977 in order to restrain developers who were selling to people properties that didn't exist yet, who were selling things that hadn't been built correctly, on a bunch of other problems that I have no idea what they were, except there were a lot of problems in the market at that point. And so they set up something that would protect the people who were buying into the condos. What they didn't do, except very summarily, was to tell the people in the condos, okay, now the developer is left. You are running your own complex. You are responsible for all the maintenance of all the interiors. You may be responsible for a septic system. You are responsible quite frequently for roads. You are responsible for keeping people from killing each other when they start fighting inside the complex. You are a mini government, and there is no municipal association to help you learn to do that. So the boards, on a lot of the bigger boards, hired property managers, and the property managers have tended to take over. Not in all of them, but in a fair number of them. We aren't sure how many. And they have taken over what the boards were doing. They've got people elected that would do what they wanted. They have ignored the new law that we put in a number of times that so that there were not elections, or if there were elections, they were based entirely on proxies that were sent out to people who were second homeowners and didn't live there all the time and didn't really want to be bothered, so they just signed the proxy and sent it back to the board. A lot of the condos are good. We have on the current condo board the chair has lived in a condominium for a number of years. Then he moved to a homeowner association. We're also supposed to be working with homeowner associations. We haven't gotten there yet because the condominium part has been blocked frequently in the Senate by agents of the largest property managers in the state who want to keep things the way they are. But we also have people coming to us, and now, because I'm the only surviving member of the condominium committee from last term, Representative Ned Gordon having retired, and the senator having retired, and I think the other representative didn't run again, but I get on many requests from or appeals for help from people that are in condominiums that have been going bad. Condominiums where the drainage has not been taken care of for years, and they are condominiums where they level special assessments to take care of the drainage or the roads, and then they use it for something else. Yeah.
My question is, we all get calls from constituents
Yes.
and problems. This is dealing specifically with a study committee.
Right.
So I'm wondering if all of the items that I'm hearing about, whether it's problems with how documents are drafted and the conversations between the owners, is that not outside the scope of this study committee that is up for being removed?
Yeah. The study committee, when I started it as a side gig, I thought that it was going to be to help boards run their mini governments. Instead, we have been dealing with a lot of unit owner condo board property manager problems. On that, what that means is we need an enforcement mechanism for this. We've
But-
had,
But again, that's not a study
that is
committee.
what we have been doing.
I understand, but that seems outside, if additional legislation is needed to create that enforcement, that's fine.
That's what
That's-
we've been
and-
doing.
And it should be, I would see, under Roman 4E, recommend statutory changes or study model laws for possible improvement to New Hampshire laws. That seems that it would be outside. Once that's done, the laws
Yeah.
need to change,
Well-
not continue to act as that.
Yeah. No, but I have been acting like it. Recently, the only one doing that because the study committee exists and people have been learning that it is there and they have no idea where to go. What we need is the condo dispute board to get put into law. But after we have finally achieved that, we will cease having all these requests for changes to the law that we are filtering for the Commerce Committee. Representative Hunt can talk to you about that. But we have been filtering them to them because people tend to put in a bill for their specific condo problem. It does not work across the board. So we have been helping to make sure that the bills that come in are going to be usable. If they become law, they're going to be applicable to most condominiums, and the other ones can get exempted from it because it just won't work for them. The other thing that we have to do and haven't done yet, we're supposed to be doing homeowner associations. Homeowner associations work somewhat differently. I run one. And they do work somewhat differently, and they can't be put under exactly the same laws. We need to spend more time talking with the people from the homeowner associations to get straight what law needs to be on the books for them. What they have now is only their legal contract that was given to them with their deed for their piece of the property. And it doesn't, it frequently does not fit the circumstances that they need to deal with.
I am seeing a number of questions.
Yeah.
Do you mind?
Yeah.
Rep. Ebel.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Representative Almy, for coming. I am on the Committee on Commissions with Vanessa, and the real issue that we were wrangling with is whether to repeal commissions that aren't really doing work anymore, that aren't meeting, that aren't, that have felt, and we really didn't inquire about the substantive nature of the committees. We were basically deciding whether we were looking at things that hadn't met for 10 years, for instance. And so I would ask you, rather than the discussion of the substantive matter that your commission is dealing with, could you talk a little bit about it? Looks to me like you've been meeting, you've issued a report, you're not really you're not really the type of committee that we were suggesting be repealed. So the question is, are you intending, it looks like if your chair wrote this report, you are intending to, you have been meeting, you expect to continue to meet,
Yes.
and that's really the issue that we're dealing with here, in my view anyway, and then just coming off of where we were in the Committee on Commissions. And so the reason that this recommendation is even in this amendment is because we thought you guys really weren't doing the job anymore, coming from us. So if you could speak to the fact that you've been meeting, and if you continue to meet, that's really the issue rather than the substantive nature of the committee, in my view, anyway.
Yeah. Well, last term, I think it was, not the term before, we didn't formally meet at all. Representative Gordon and I would get there. The senator never showed up, which he hadn't showed up in past years, but we'd had all three of the rest of us working. And and so there wasn't a quorum. This year, for the first time, we have 4 people who really are committed to this work, including the senator. And we were going to meet 3 times by now. The first time was that time when it was 95 degrees out and they closed down the LOB. So we weren't allowed to meet. The chair said that, Chair Infantine said that we would try to meet in this month, which I don't think is going to work, and next month to continue to talk about the bill that I was talking about, that is the enforcement mechanism, so that they could all make suggestions if they think it needs to be redone. The last time it was redone was when Representative Gordon polished it a bit, but I think it probably needs a few small changes.
I have another question from Rep. McCarter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we have the report that you provided before you spoke, and it's dated November 1st of this year. So I'm curious as to, is this the only report that is available for that committee since its inception?
We have 2 sets of minutes for the 2 meetings. And we did not, this has been fairly normal over the years, which is part of the problem, that we're all so busy on our own committees when we're in session that we're supposed to start meeting in the summer, but we no longer meet in the summer. We have vacations in the whole summer. And so we don't start until September. And then we have September, October. The second year is constrained by the fact that we're all, by October, we're campaigning hard. It does make this kind of committee a little difficult to get ready for the next year, frankly. So I put in the 2 bills that we had been planning on doing before last year. The chair has signed on to the proxy one, and he wants to discuss the other one with the whole committee before before they support it.
Follow up.
Thank you. So the purpose of this committee in the very, very beginning, back in 2012, was to study existing statute to see where there might be gaps or what have you with regards to condo and homeowner association organized structures. And
Yes.
it was the purpose at that time to also study that information and then take feedback from constituents or homeowners associations to craft new legislation to try to plug those gaps? Or was it a kind of, as things came in, it would give you an idea, okay, that makes sense, maybe there's other people that are dealing with this, maybe we should, create legislation to solve that problem? Was this, in your opinion, an ongoing committee that was just going to be forever because there would always be evolving issues to contend with regards
No.
to those?
That's why we're trying to get the enforcement mechanism. It's a kind of mediation and once that's in place, when somebody has a specific problem in their kind of condominium, which doesn't really apply to the others, they can go to that board and they can get case law put into the court system. This was done by the Manufactured Housing Board for many years, and they worked themselves out of a job, but will be out of a job once we've got basic homeowner law that we haven't started to work on yet, plus an enforcement mechanism. Right now, they can't go to the Attorney General's office. They won't deal with it. They can't go, the only thing they can do is go to Superior Court. It takes a minimum of 2 years and about $20,000 to get heard in that court.
One more question.
Follow up.
Thank you. So do you have legislation in for this session
Yes.
coming up for an enforcement mechanism?
Yes,
Okay.
it's the same one that we were going to pass in 2020 when COVID shut us all down.
Do you mind if we speak offline after the meeting? I have a couple questions that relate to my living situation right now.
See, this is
Thank
well,
you.
we had 3 totally different kinds of groups come in the last 2 meetings to talk about their problems, and I must say it was a very big education for the chair and John Sitek, both of whom knew something about condominiums but had never run into a bad one.
Rep Sheehan.
Yes, so, thank you for taking my question. So the this final report, and the legislation that you, put in this year, you're saying that that will take care of your commission and
No,
no.
No.
So, okay, so is your commission, do you want to continue your commission in order to take feedback from constituents and problems that they're having in their condo and homeowners associations?
we are getting feedback, whether we want it or not, still on the condominium issues and some from homeowner associations. We haven't started the work on the homeowner associations yet. And the other thing that until they have no place else to go, they come to us from the condo associations now because there is no enforcement mechanism in this state except going to the Superior Court and getting on a docket 2 years from now.
Well, correct me.
Follow up.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, then shouldn't this commission be repealed and a new one started because you're not following the purpose of the original?
The purpose is to draft legislation and get it passed.
To study
On
laws relating.
to study in order to draft legislation and get it passed. And the second part of the purpose is the homeowner associations that we've been putting off. And because until there's an enforcement mechanism, it's not going to help much. We've been passing laws, and a couple of times I've written letters at the behalf of a condo member to their association board saying, here is the law. And sometimes that's worked, and they start obeying it. Sometimes
Okay.
it doesn't because there's no enforcement mechanism.
Great. Any further comments,
No.
questions?
Yeah.
I think we're good.
Yeah, the legislation is about the enforcement mechanism and then about homeowner law.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to ask Chairman Dolan I have a question or two, if you don't mind. Welcome to Legislative Administration.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
My question is, the charge of your committee, was it purely dealing with committees and commissions that are no longer needed and or no longer operating? Does it have a feature for those that are operating outside their, their original establishment purpose?
Well, thank you for the question. We've continued the work that was led by Representative Ebert for several years. A lot of ditch digging and going back through the process. This committee is a great example of what the charge really was, and that is to find and root out those committees and commissions of the 300 and some odd that are out there churning, that we could eliminate or combine or consolidate, so that this particular problem is emblematic of what's wrong with our system, that so many of us are tapped on the shoulder to fill a role on a committee or a commission that there's just no time. If you have so many places to be, people don't show up because they're conflicted with other obligations, and therefore committees don't meet or they don't achieve a quorum, and that's a systemic problem. No comment individually about this particular commission and the good work that a lot of the people that are serving on it want to do, but the issue we looked at and on this particular commission is there is definitely some work that needs to be done with condo associations and homeowners associations and so forth. But once that work is identified, then our recommendation to the committee is to implement legislation, probably through Commerce, to fix whatever problem that they found, not to continue year after year to have a commission that very rarely, if ever, meets, again, just it churns the cost of government that we're all trying to keep our eye on, that's out there that we want to try to scale back. I don't know if I'm answering your question, but the issue here is once an issue has been identified, in this case on this committee, the issue is we need stronger laws to implement, then that should get transferred over, in this case probably Commerce, to implement the legislation or to bring forth legislation to accomplish that, not to continue to study it ad infinitum. And that's really where the committee's at.
Thank you for your answer. Is your committee capable of creating legislation?
Yeah, we could. There are, as you know, there are only certain opportunities or windows in which to create that legislation. The next window for us really is going to be next year, when the window opens for new legislation, or there is an alternate path through the Rules Committee to enable special legislation to be created with the approval of the Rules Committee as an exception to the rule. And so that window is available to us. I would suspect that this committee that I chair will continue to dig at committees and commissions to look for opportunities to consolidate or reduce the number of committees and commissions that we're all obligated to sit on and to serve going forward.
Final question from me. Would it upset the charge of your committee for us to extend the time period for terminating this committee to give that time to be able to create the legislation in Commerce or whoever you suggest in order to better determine the purpose of what's actually occurring within the guise of a study committee?
It would not upset us at all, and I would defer to Representative Sheehan on that. But we have Representative Wall from this committee, Representative Sheehan, we have the minority leader, we have Representative Abel, excuse me, that sit on this committee, and I think we're all in general favor of allowing committees, commissions to continue that are doing good work and add value to our process. So
Great.
we would certainly support any decision you want to make along those lines.
Great, thank you very much. I have one or two other questions for Rep. Constable.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for taking my question. Regarding the condo associations, it's my understanding that Commerce just, I think this term, created a subcommittee just for condos and that sort of thing, because it's just grown to a level that they can have their own subcommittee, and it seems to me that wouldn't that be the place for the ongoing, as we get ideas for legislation, that this committee, this study committee, could be funneled into that subcommittee?
Thank you for the question, and I couldn't agree with you more.
Rep. Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for taking my question. I'm a freshman. I'm trying to make sure I understand this theory correctly. Is a study committee relative to the laws of whatever, condos or finance, pollution, is the purpose of that committee to study the activity within our government related to that issue, or is that committee also supposed to function with a marketed effort to field constituent concerns and questions? I'm just trying to make sure I understand. My understanding was these committees are kind of an internal group working together to solve issues interdepartmental or conflicting legislation. It's not necessarily something where you have an information hotline that constituents are reaching out to those study committees. Am I incorrect?
No, you're absolutely correct. The purpose of most study committees and commissions is not to serve as a complaint desk for the constituents. That's something to be. These study committees and commissions should be serving those of you sitting around the table as you consider what action to take or not take, depending on the particular committee or commission. So when constituents have complaints, they certainly need to be dealt with. And that's one of the issues, if I may, Mr. Chairman, one of the issues that we have is, especially with freshmen, is that what do you do with a study commission or committee? How do you invoke one, and when is the right time to do that? So this committee that I chair, it's a committee of 10 of relatively senior people with experience, and what they look at is what's the process for doing this, and that's one of the things we have focused on in the past year. What's the process? So when you go to OLS with a hot idea in your mind, fresh probably from a meeting with constituents in the back of a school board meeting or a council meeting or whatever, you come all energized, ready to study something. And what happens is you go to OLS and you tell them what you want to get done. And going forward, what they're going to be giving you back is a set of instructions to suggest how you go about doing that. Have you considered X, Y, and Z? Have you considered 1, 2, 3, 4? And that will help pare down the 300 or so more commissions. One of the things, if as you get beyond your freshman term, you're going to hear feedback that's from others, representatives, that says something like this: well, I know that's important to a couple of constituents in my particular community, so I don't see a lot of interest elsewhere in the legislature, so what we'll do is we'll study it. That's kind of the fallback. Well, let's study it. So, and that might be the right thing to do, but when that's our fallback, what happens is our system gets clogged with all these study committees and commissions that we have very little time to go off and do what we're supposed to be doing because we're sitting on so many of these commissions. And by the way, many times we drag in members of state government to sit on these committees and commissions as well that should be doing their work other than that. And at the hourly rate we pay them, it's a lot more expensive than it is for the $100 a year that you get paid. But they're not at $100 a year. They're getting paid their due salary. And they to come and sit in a commission that might spend 15 or 20 minutes and then dismiss because a quorum wasn't achieved. It's a very sad thing, and it's a sad commentary on the management of the cost of state government. So we want to be able to satisfy constituents' concerns. We want to be able to satisfy issues. In this particular case about condo associations and homeowners associations, we want to do it efficiently. And if action needs to be taken, in this case, by a standing committee like a commerce committee, then let's do it. Let's not just keep studying it for years like this particular operation has been working. I hope that answered.
I think it did. Are there any further questions? Seeing none, thank you very much for taking the time. Okay, folks, we've heard our public hearing on 4 amendments. We are now past 11 o'clock. We can open the exec session on Senate Bill 84. I would still like to proceed as an ought to pass and then have discussion about each of the amendments as we go and just leave it free form, wide open. You can discuss any of the amendments that we have going at the same time. If there are further amendments that are needed, that would be fine. I have 2 prepared. We can discuss those, but at the moment, I would suggest or ask Rep. Sheehan to for a motion on Senate Bill 84.
I move ought to pass.
Rep. Sheehan moves ought to pass. Is there a second? Second by Rep. Tierney. There are 4 amendments. The bill is open to amendment. Does anybody want to have conversations about any of the 4? I thought you might.
Yes. Well, I'm in full support of the amendment regarding the Wynant Memorial. I think we chatted about this a little bit earlier, and within the Committee on Commissions, it made sense for a memorial commission that had kind of achieved its purpose to be transferred over to the Historical Commission for oversight and maintenance. So I'm definitely in support of that one. I did have some questions about the amendment that removed the annual indexing of commissions, but it sounds like everybody's on task and pulling in the same direction. So what this particular section was trying to achieve is being achieved, I hope, in a better way. So I'll support that amendment. What was the other one? Oh, the amendment on the environmental councils. I'm on that. It does need to, or I saw I was on that. I think the work needs to be done, so I support that. The only one that I have some misgiving about is 2399H as it's structured. You did ask Chair Dolan whether he would be amenable on behalf of our committee to extend the life of the condo study committee by 1 year. I think based on the input from Representative Almy, that would be a good idea. And if there was another amendment that made that accommodation, I would support that.
Thank you, Rafi. Anyone else? you are the amenable commission here, committee. I too, would support on the final amendment, the 2399H. I am persuaded that, while I don't believe, the work that the study committee is actually doing, follows, what the original purpose of the language is, in the RSA. I do think that it's valuable, and I do think that, they should be given the opportunity to make the case, as it says, recommend statutory changes and study model laws, for possible improvement. I think that's what they're doing. And I think they have, perhaps, it's not within this commission, this committee's duties to determine whether those laws are appropriate or not. I think that it has been pointed out that it should be done within Commerce. And I understand that there is an LSR, at least, maybe a bill number now, for doing some of that. I would have no problem extending or amending 2399H, on that particular committee list, of those 6, to extend that for an additional year. I think that would be appropriate. Rep. McCarty, and I'm fine with all the other 3. I mean, they all just seem to make sense to me. It's more of a cleanup than anything else. Cleanup on aisle 2. Rep. McCarter, you have a point.
Would this Senate Bill 84, would this be an appropriate addition or amendment to that bill to require, when a new committee or task force commission is established, that it must contain some sort of a sunset date? It's got to have its work concluded by, whatever the germane period of time would be for the particular item. Is this the bill that kind of language should work it around into?
Is that a question to the chair? Is it possible to, you've seen, right now we're building an omnibus bill, basically. So is it possible to go on there? Sure, it's possible. I would suggest, however, that there already in statute are provisions that do exactly what you're saying. There's actually an LSR I've seen that actually is talking to that as well. So my opinion is it wouldn't be necessary here. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. So you're saying that there already is statute that prescribes for that,
Yes.
and does that pertain to every study committee? I
Yes.
can look it up myself.
Yes, it
but-
does. It's in, actually, if you look on the sheet here for 1449,
Yeah.
if you look at B under Roman 2,
Okay.
I think that's what you're talking about. Is that right, people? The thing is, this Committee on Commissions and Committees is working through all of those, and I'm not sure if it's all 300, but a lot of those were created prior to this going into effect.
I see.
So a lot of those, I think, will be taken care of by that 5-year sunset. But right now, they're working on those that prior to that 5-year window occurring. Rep. Sellers.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I think all of these ought to pass at this point here. And as far as giving another year, that's really, that's being generous, I think, honestly. Um, Especially that one committee there, as far as condominiums and homeowners. It's been in business for 14 years. 14 years. I mean, how many more years do you need to study something? And it seems like almost every biennial, since we're changing representatives all the time and even senators, it seems like we're starting all over again. So, or for the most part. So I think it should just go as it is. And that's my thought on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Feel free to go around the room here. Well, let's just start with a straw poll on the first one. Does anyone have any problems or any concerns on 2401H? All in favor of that, say aye. Aye. All opposed? So we're good there. Straw poll on 2372H, which is dealing with the annual index of all of the commissions that it now is available online and can be drawn up at any time. Does anyone have any issues there? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Then 2400H. This is the bill that because of whether it's a snafu with it being in HB2 or just no one understood that it or recognized it and it came out late and everyone was appointed late and now they want an additional year. Are there any discussion points on that? All those in favor of 2400H signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Now we get to 2399H. All those that, I'm going to go out on a limb and say, all those that are opposed, no. All those that are in favor of allowing an additional year before termination signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It sounds to me like there's more ayes than there were nays. I suppose there's a third option in there of completely pulling it from that list of 6 and it going on its merry way. I don't feel that the committee, well, I'll put it out. Does anyone want to just pull that completely and let it continue to go as it on its own?
Question
Yes.
for Chairman Dolan. Your committee is still functioning. It's still got time to go, so you'll still be looking at reviewing various committees and commissions that are still functioning. You would still be reviewing them. So if this one's totally pulled out right now, you'd take a look at it at your next meeting next year or the year after and see if it was a good time to get rid of it at that point.
Yes, thank you for the question. Yes, but know that this window of opportunity is by piggybacking on this amendment. If a subsequent action were to be taken on this as a standalone, it would need special permission from the Rules Committee in order to bring that forward, which we can get, I think we can get, depending on the speaker and his staff. But it's just more difficult, but it can be done.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Rep Sheehan.
Yeah, and I understand what you're saying there, Rep. Cherney, but if we're gonna do that, we might as well just extend it a year, and keep that change in the amendment. You know, instead of throwing it back to the special committee on commissions where we have a lot more things to look at as well. We've looked at this and, you know, we're making a graceful, compromise and letting it, have another year now.
My opinion, so here we go. I have two amendments, coincidentally, in my hot little hands here. One of them, and what I'll do is call the roll on, the official roll on these two. What we have to do is consolidate, a bill can only have one amendment. So what we're doing is consolidating all of these into one amendment onto Senate Bill 84, replacing all the language that exists on Senate Bill 84 with one or the other of these two amendments that I have. One of them extends for a period of 1 year that one Roman V that we're talking about on condominiums. The other one removes it immediately. That's the only difference between these two amendments. So what I will do is call the roll on those two, and the one that passes will be the one that gets submitted with Senate Bill 84. Rep. Constable?
Well, can we could just do the 1 year extension. If that passed, then we don't do the second one, right?
We can.
Yeah. Okay.
We good with that? Any problems? So here we go. The one that changes, actually, why don't I hand this out? Let me see which one I'm handing out so I can tell you which one I'm handing out. This is the bill. This is the amendment. Yes. All right. What you're getting is the amendment that moves the effective date of termination on that single committee on condominiums, study committee on condominiums, by 1 year. So, and it would show up on page 2 at the very bottom, line 33. Section 5, paragraph V of this act will take effect January 1st, 2025. Is there any discussion on that amendment? Did I hand out everybody else? Seeing none, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll. The new clerk to call the roll.
Okay, we're voting on amendment 2023-2434H.
I should, let me just quickly point out, I want to make sure everyone understands, this is inclusive of 2401H, 2372H, 2400H, and 2399H with that one change. That's what we're voting on. Okay?
Okay, clerk votes yes. Rep. Sellers,
Yes.
Rep. Costable,
Yes.
Rep. McCarter. Yes. Rep. Tierney,
Yes.
Rep. Ebel,
Yes. Yes.
Rep. Nutting Wong,
Yes.
Rep. Turcott,
Yes.
Rep. Montiel,
Yes.
Rep. Malloy,
Yes.
Chairman Hill.
Yes.
11-0.
I think that renders the Second Amendment moot at that point. That would mean we have amended Senate Bill 84. So we need an ought to pass as amended. But we need first a motion to move Senate Bill 84 as amended ought to pass. Rep Sheehan.
Yep, I move Senate Bill 84 as amended, ought to pass.
Could you add the amendment number?
And the amendment number is 2023-2434H.
I want to double check that just so we don't have to come back again. Yes, it's amended with 2023-2434H. Any further discussion?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Actually, you're a substitute.
Oh, I can't.
Rep. McCarter will second. Not to point my finger at you, I'm sorry about that.
It's okay.
Good, no further discussion. We're voting on ought to pass Senate Bill 84 as amended with 2023-2434H.
Clerk votes yes. Representative Sellers,
Yes.
Representative Costable,
Yes.
Representative McCarter,
Yes.
Representative Tierney,
Yes.
Representative Ebel,
Yes.
Representative Nutting Wong,
Yes.
Representative Turcott,
Yes.
Representative Montiel,
Yes.
Representative Malloy,
Yes.
Chairman Hill.
Yes, big yes.
11-0.
Even though this is a omnibus bill at this point, I don't believe there's any reason why we couldn't have it on consent if, without objection. We'll put it on consent. And I think that, thank you for following along the bouncing ball here today and the one error on my part. I appreciate the help of our substitutes. That concludes our work for today and for this term, this year of the term. Again, all of your work is greatly appreciated. And that's it. Thanks very much. I'm closing the exec session on Senate Bill 84 as amended. Ta-da.